This is Dante Williams, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
This is Showtime Sean Porter, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
You can call me a hater. You can call me biased. You can call me pretty much whatever you want to call me. But one thing you will not call me is a motherfucking liar. And you will never say that Dante does not make sense. I can guarantee you that. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, before I go any further, let me go ahead and distinguish telling the truth and just flat out being a hater. Let me give you the definition of what a hater is. A hater would look at this picture right now of Canelo Alvarez and say, I want his pussy ass out of the sport. I can't wait till he's out of the sport. I just want this man to retire. And every time he puts on a good performance, my only response is, oh, you must be a gay Canelo fan, right? You like gay Canelo, so that makes you gay too. I don't like Canelo. Oh, and if you like him, I don't like you. You're just as gay as he is, right? Now, what you will notice is in that entire segment that I just did, never was I really talking about boxing, right? Everything that I said was all emotion. That is the true definition of a hater, okay? What I do is tell you the truth. You may not like it. You may not want to hear it, but I speak the truth. This is the question. Is this the beginning of the end for Canelo Alvarez's career? Now, to answer this, we would have to look at the series of events that have already taken place. Now, Canelo Alvarez right now is 24 years old, right? He has had 3 big fights in his career so far. And when I say big fights, what I basically mean is very competitive fights where a lot of people believe that the other guy could beat him. That's against Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather, and now Erislandy Lara. In those 3 fights, none of them were clean-cut wins, right? They were either straight-out losses, or a lot of people believe they were losses for Canelo Alvarez. Let me tell you something. When you win a fight and the only thing that people are talking about is if you won or if you lost, then that means it was not a clear-cut win, okay? It means it wasn't impressive, it wasn't decisive, it was none of the above, basically. Especially when you already have the majority of the public on your side and you still are having conversations like this, okay? Now, that makes more sense when the guy who's fighting, is hated by everyone and everyone is rooting against him if people say, oh, you lost that fight and this and that. That makes more sense. But when you have a guy that is loved by the majority of the boxing public and we still are having these conversations going back and forth, then that's not a good sign for Canelo Alvarez. Does that make sense? So one more time, Canelo Alvarez has already had 3 big fights in his career, right? Now, I think that we can all agree that Canelo Alvarez officially lost one of those fights and the other 2 were very controversial. Not including the Canelo fans, of course, a lot of people believe that Canelo flat out lost to Lara. And a lot of people believe that the Austin Trout fight could have went either way. Now let's look at some other fighters and let's look at how they did when they had one of their first big wins. Let's take Guillermo Rigo, for example, against Nonito Donaire, because of course that was his only big fight he's ever had. And a lot of people believe he wasn't ready. They believe he didn't have the experience and it was too premature, including Nonito Donaire. He believed that Rigo wasn't ready for this type of step up. And we all know what happened. Rigo, he dominated the top 5 pound-for-pound champion, Nonito Donaire. Let's even look at Manny Pacquiao. When he first came over here to the States and he had to fight against a prime champion that was expected to actually beat him, and that was South African's Led Waba. Then he went on to dominate Marco Antonio Barrera. Let's look at Floyd Mayweather. When he was under 24 years old, he had already beat Jr Hernandez and Diego Corrales in a spectacular fashion. Both of these fighters were favored to beat Mayweather, okay? So the point that I'm making is when Canelo was put in the same position as Mayweather, Pacquiao, Rigo early on when they had their first big test, Canelo, he failed the test. He failed the test because he never dominated any of these fighters. And it's not even about dominating, it's just winning the fight clearly. If people are only talking about who won the fight, then you didn't win the fight clearly. I mean, think about it. After Rigo beat Donaire, how many people did we hear talking about who won the fight? Not too many, right? They may have been talking about other things, but they damn sure wasn't talking about who won the fight. Same thing with Mayweather against Jr Hernandez and Diego Corrales. There was no one talking about who won the fight. We already know who won the fight. And let me just say this as well. You know, to a lot of the people who already know that Lara won this fight against Canelo this past weekend, and you're getting a little irritated because you're hearing Canelo fans say, oh, Canelo won, man, Canelo won. Don't even worry about that, guys. Don't even worry about that, because this is what they're supposed to say. Of course they're going to say Canelo won the fight. They're Canelo Alvarez fans. Why would they say that? Why would they say, you know what, I'm a Canelo Alvarez fan, but my guy, he flat out lost this fight? They're not going to say that, especially after the judges just said that Canelo won. That's like someone in Canelo Alvarez's family saying that. Can you imagine Canelo Alvarez's brother telling someone, well, you know what, between me and you, I think my brother actually lost this fight? They're not going to say that. And that's the same thing with the Canelo Alvarez fans. So we should all expect Canelo Alvarez fans to say this, but it goes beyond Canelo Alvarez fans. The truth of the matter is, the majority of boxing fans, and when I say boxing fans, I'm talking about everyone, from the writers, the media, the analysts, etc., etc. The majority of boxing fans, they desperately want to see a non-black hope reach the top of the sport. We know this by just reading the comments on the internet. If you've been reading the comments on these YouTube videos, on other boxing blogs, then we know this to be the case. So the point I'm making is, of course, the majority of people are going to say, oh, no, that wasn't a robbery at all. That was a clear-cut win. The judges had it right. Of course they're going to say that. We know what time it is already. And of course, these are all the same people who said that Pacquiao-Bradley 1 was a robbery. These are all the same people who said Castillo versus Mayweather 1 was a robbery, right? But of course they're going to sit here and tell you, oh no, this fight wasn't a robbery at all. Oh, you got it all wrong, buddy. Of course they're going to tell you that. But I say to everyone who knows the truth, don't even worry about that. Just believe your own damn eyes, okay? If you got 20/20 vision, then you know who won. And we'll leave it at that. Like I always tell you guys, no matter how many people are backing up Canelo, from the media to the writers to the fans, the majority of the fans all got his back. They're all trying to force him to be great. It does not matter, because no matter how much you try to hide the truth will always break free. And the truth is going to break free on Canelo Alvarez. I mean, having boxing judges named Martinez from New Mexico and Texas, that is temporary. That will only work for a short period of time. Eventually, you won't have anyone to protect you. And then the truth is going to come out. This is exactly what happened to Oscar De La Hoya, and it's going to happen to Canelo Alvarez as well. Oscar De La Hoya, he was protected with a lot of decisions against Corte, Pernell Whitaker, but eventually that caught up to him, and he had no one to protect him. And that's when the truth came out, and that's when he continued to lose and lose and lose. And this is exactly what's going to happen to Canelo Alvarez. Mark my words. Canelo Alvarez, I know you're hating to hear the truth, but it is the truth. And if you don't believe it, you would have to agree that it makes some sense, doesn't it? Of course it makes sense. Let's look at Canelo Alvarez. Let's take a deeper look into Canelo Alvarez. Now, Canelo is 24 years old, and like I just told you guys, he's already had 3 big wins, and he has not won one of those fights decisively. His biggest wins are either losses, or a lot of people believe that he lost the fight. Now he's fighting at 154. He can't even make the weight at 154. He claims he can make the weight, but he just personally decides when he's going to make the weight and when he's not going to make the weight. That is a bad sign, guys. And when you see Canelo Alvarez look like a damn skeleton when he's at the weigh-in, the reason why he looks like that is because that is not his natural weight. Okay? If you looked at Erislandy Lara at the weigh-in, he looked the same way he looked 3 months before the fight, because that is his natural weight. Canelo Alvarez is trying to pull a Margarito, is what he's trying to do. He wants to remain being the strongest guy in the division. Okay? He wants to maintain that advantage. That's why he's struggling to try to stay at 154. He knows that once he moves up to 160, he'll be fighting against guys. A lot of them will be naturally bigger than him. A lot of them will be naturally stronger than him, or at least have the same type of power and strength that he has. He doesn't want to lose that advantage that he has right now. If you guys remember Margarito, he was damn near 6 foot tall. He would stay at 147. I remember as soon as he moved up to 154, he fought against Santos, and he lost to Santos. As soon as he lost to him, he moved back down to 147 because he felt that power difference. He felt the size difference. He felt, I'm not knocking these guys out like I was able to do at 147. I need my advantage. So he moves back down to 147. Listen to Freddie Roach. He's talking the same way. After the Tim Bradley fight, what does Freddie say? He says maybe these welterweights are too big for us, even though Manny Pacquiao's been campaigning at welterweight for a couple years now. And then Freddie says we should move down to 140. Now they're going to be fighting Chris Algieri next, hoping to get those knockouts that he used to get before. You see how it works? This is what Canelo Alvarez is banking on, trying to remain being the strongest fighter at 154 pounds. But he has a dilemma because it's hard for him to make the weight. Not only that, but he can't even beat the best fighters in his own division. Without the help of the judges, he loses these fights. I mean, let's face it. So you're struggling to beat guys when you have a massive power advantage over everyone. You can't move up to 160 because those fighters will most likely be better than you and have just as much power and strength as you. So what does he do? Where does he go from here? Like I told you guys before, Canelo's not beating a Triple G, and he's not beating the Charlo twins, and certainly not beating Demetrius Andrade, who I truly believe right now is probably the best junior middleweight in the world right now. I mean, you can go back and forth. It's between Lara and Demetrius Andrade. You could probably do a 1 and 1A, but Demetrius Andrade, he is the business. But I have to say, as a boxing fan, I would love to see Cotto versus Canelo. I think that is a great fight. You know, the Mexican-Puerto Rican rivalry, and now the fact that Cotto just beat Sergio Martinez and he's the middleweight champion of the world, that is a huge fight. And I truly believe that Cotto is a much better boxer than Canelo Alvarez. You know, Miguel Cotto, he found a new confidence when he avenged his loss against Margarito. But that confidence was took to a whole nother level when he beat the middleweight champion of the world, Sergio Martinez. I truly believe that this is the undefeated Miguel Cotto right now, guys. I truly believe that. I believe this is the Miguel Cotto that beat Shane Mosley, beat Zab Judah. This is the type of Miguel Cotto that's going to go in that ring and fight against Canelo Alvarez. And with the lack of defense that Canelo has, fighting in spurts, throwing wide punches, not being the greatest boxer, he's going to have tons of problems against Miguel Cotto. All right? So I truly believe that this is the beginning of the end for Canelo Alvarez's career. You know, I also want to touch on this. Someone has said, posted a message, of course, a Canelo fan. He said, hey, man, you got to understand, Canelo's only 24 years old. He hasn't even reached his peak yet. In other words, he was defending Canelo and pretty much admitting that Canelo didn't look good against Lara and possibly even lost to Lara. The reason why he lost, according to this guy, is because Canelo hasn't reached his prime yet, hasn't reached his peak yet, to say. So let me ask you guys a question. Be honest with me. Who here really believes that 3 or 4 years from now, Canelo is going to be a much better fighter than what he is today? And he'll still only have one loss on his record, which is, of course, to Floyd Mayweather. Who believes that? Who really believes that's when he's going to reach his peak? I'm going to tell you right now, if you believe that shit, then you believe that Larry Merchant and Jim Lampley's favorite fighter is Floyd Mayweather. Speaking of Floyd Mayweather, just to give you guys a little bit more contrast, by the time Floyd Mayweather was 24 years old, the same age Canelo is today, Floyd Mayweather had already dominated big, tough challenges, okay? Floyd Mayweather was dominant and fighting at a peak level at the age of 21. And you're telling me that Canelo Alvarez at the age of 24 with 40 plus fights already fought against, what, 2 or 3 champions? And you telling me you believe he still hasn't even reached his peak? Let's see where Canelo Alvarez is 3 years from now. I can guarantee you it won't be on top of the pound for pound list. I can guarantee you that. And speaking of boxers improving as they get older or they have more experience or gain more experience, that makes me think of Keith Thurman. See, Keith Thurman is one of those type of fighters that he incorporates new things into his skill set. You see new things almost every time he fights. I mean, you see him getting smarter and smarter. You know, tremendous counterpuncher, great boxer, but at the same time he has power. Canelo Alvarez, on the other hand, I never see anything different from Canelo. It's the same Canelo. It's the same walking around, you know, trying to look like he has a slick style, but then he wings these wild power punches, you know, and don't get me wrong, Canelo is a good fighter, but he is a very flawed fighter. The point that I'm making is I never see any improvements from Canelo. People said that Canelo, he got better just from the experience he gained against Floyd Mayweather, but look at how he looked against Erislandy Lara. I mean, let's face it, Carlos Molina and Angulo did a better job against Lara than Canelo Alvarez did. How is that possible? That proves right there that Canelo has not gotten better. Canelo is the same fighter that he always was, okay? He's always been slow on his foot. He always gasses out. He fights in spurts. The only reason we didn't really see spurts in this fight is because Lara allowed Canelo to fight at his own pace, okay? If Lara would have been pushing Canelo back a couple times like Austin Trout did, like Floyd Mayweather did. Floyd Mayweather, 15, 20 pounds smaller than Canelo, and Floyd was standing right in front of Canelo, even backing him up, as Paulie Malignaggi pointed out during the fight, okay? So if Lara would have been pushing Canelo back in spurts of that fight, we would have seen Canelo slow down tremendously. And like I said before, Lara, he might have even hurt Canelo if he would have pushed the envelope. But he didn't. He just outboxed him from a distance. But once again, I seen no improvements from Canelo. I don't think anyone, even Canelo Alvarez fans, you guys would have to be honest. Did you see any improvements in the Lara fight? Looking at the Floyd Mayweather fight, then looking at the Lara fight, did you really see any improvements? He never really cut off the ring. Don't get me wrong. He tried to cut off the ring at different points in this fight. But once again, there were moments in this fight where Lara was backed up, not only on the ropes, but backed up in the corner on the ropes. And you know what Canelo Alvarez did? He stood there blocking, expecting to get hit with Lara's left hand. Because that's the main thing he was worried about, is Lara's left hand. So he didn't have the courage to just stick his head in the meat grinder, as I always say, and just go at it. Sacrifice himself, take a couple punches so that he can make the fight tough, rough, and he can land his own punches, because that's what Angulo did. Canelo wasn't able to do that. And that is the reason why Canelo is going to have a lot of problems in the future. He's going to have a lot of problems in the future if he's afraid to get dirty and get on the inside. You're going to have a lot of these fighters that are going to be taller than you, that are going to have a much better reach than you, that are going to be catching you with beautiful jabs, right hands, and other punches, and you're going to be sitting there trying to outbox them from a distance, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Just like I told you guys with Berman Stavern versus Deontay Wilder. If Berman tries to do that with Deontay Wilder, you know, outbox him from a distance when Deontay Wilder is 6'7", 6'8", it's not going to work for Berman. Canelo Alvarez is not improving, and that's the point that I'm making. Mark my words, that Canelo versus Lara fight, that was the beginning of the end for Canelo Alvarez. I'm on to the next one.